Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the story of a guy who started out in a literal dirt floor log cabin and somehow went on to completely redefine what freedom means for millions of people. I mean, you'd never expect someone with those kinds of rough beginnings to fundamentally alter the course of human history, right? But he didn't just survive his circumstances. He became this towering symbol of perseverance, rising from extreme poverty to save the United States during its absolute darkest hour. So buckle up because we are getting right into the incredible life of Abraham Lincoln, the architect of American freedom. Okay, let's dive into this. One. Just one. That single digit is actually the total number of years of formal education Abraham Lincoln had in his entire life. Think about that for a second. Less than a single year of sitting inside a classroom. For a guy who eventually became one of the most respected, most articulate leaders the world has ever known, this fact completely shatters our modern ideas of what it takes to achieve greatness. So that obviously begs a massive question. How exactly does someone go from having less than 12 months of formal schooling to leading a severely fractured nation through a civil war? It's kind of the ultimate hero's journey, honestly. It's a story that proves without a doubt that where you start in life absolutely does not dictate where you end up. To really wrap our heads around how Lincoln pulled this off, we need to take a close look at the environment that forged him. Section 1, Humble Beginnings and Hard Lessons. Let's move to and see how this builds. To really get it, we have to travel back to the rugged American frontier. Lincoln was born on February 12, 1809, in Hardin County, Kentucky. His family had virtually nothing, and let me tell you, life out there was brutally harsh. Young Abraham spent grueling, back-breaking hours farming just to help his family survive. But amidst all that intense physical labor, the kid had a spark. Since he couldn't actually go to school, books became his greatest teachers. He'd literally walk miles and miles just to borrow a single book, reading it by candlelight late into the night. He taught himself massive, complex subjects: history, mathematics, literature, law, politics. This wasn't just casual bedtime reading. This was the active, disciplined construction of a truly brilliant mind. Now, what's really interesting about this is that his path to greatness was anything but a straight line. It was a jagged path full of severe hardship. He failed in business, lost tough elections for the U.S. Senate, went through some deep financial holes, and endured absolutely devastating personal tragedies. Honestly, any single one of those setbacks would be enough to make a normal person just throw in the towel. But instead of breaking him, each failure actually fueled his determination. His ability to just keep going, to persist through repeated crushing defeats, that became his defining characteristic. Section 2, The Rise of Honest Abe. So despite having almost zero formal schooling, this self-taught genius decided to study law and, incredibly, passed the bar exam. But he wasn't sitting in some fancy corner office. He was riding the legal circuit across Illinois, meeting everyday citizens, listening to their struggles, and fighting for them in local courts. He even used his famous, tall stovepipe hat as a makeshift briefcase to carry around important legal papers. It was that total lack of pretense, mixed with genuine integrity, that earned him the nickname Honest Abe. He had this amazing knack for taking incredibly complex legal and political ideas and explaining them simply. And that natural communication skill, that's exactly what drew him right into the political arena. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive challenge ahead. This plain-spoken lawyer was walking directly into a national powder keg. As Lincoln got more involved in public affairs, the United States was deeply, fundamentally divided. The northern states were increasingly opposed to the expansion of slavery, while the southern states relied heavily on slave labor for their entire economic survival. This wasn't just some standard political debate. It was a profound, growing fracture that was threatening to rip the entire country apart. And Lincoln, he took a firm, unwavering moral stance. He believed slavery was fundamentally wrong and that it absolutely should not expand an inch further. Section 3, Guiding a Divided Nation. To a lot of people back then, a self-taught frontier lawyer probably seemed like a pretty unlikely choice for president in 1860. Yet his powerful speeches and rock-solid principles actually won him the election, making him the 16th president. But literally the moment he won, the whole crisis exploded. Several southern states just refused to accept the outcome and announced they were separating from the Union entirely. By 1861, the American Civil War had erupted. This conflict escalated incredibly fast into the deadliest war in the nation's history. Critics were coming at Lincoln viciously from every single direction. But somehow, through all the chaos and the bloodshed, he stayed hyper-focused on one singular goal: preserving the nation. So the crucial point is this. As this grueling war raged on, Lincoln made a truly monumental move. On January 1st, 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This was a historic document that legally declared freedom for enslaved people within Confederate-controlled areas. Now, sure, slavery didn't magically end everywhere the very next morning, but this document did something entirely revolutionary. It wasn't just a clever legal trick. It completely transformed the moral purpose of the entire war. Suddenly, it was no longer just about preserving a political border. It became a righteous fight for fundamental human freedom. With the stroke of a pen, Lincoln literally changed the trajectory of human history. Later that exact same year, right after the unimaginably bloody Battle of Gettysburg, Lincoln gave a speech to honor the fallen soldiers. And here is something absolutely wild. The keynote speaker right before him, that guy spoke for 2 solid hours. Lincoln, he spoke for exactly 2 minutes, just 272 words. Yet his Gettysburg Address perfectly crystallized the very essence of American democracy. He reminded a battered, exhausted nation that those massive sacrifices on the battlefield were meant to ensure that a government of the people, by the people, and for the people would not perish from the earth. Think about that. Just 2 minutes of speaking, and it inspired generations. Section 4. Victory, Tragedy, and Legacy. Fast forward to 1865, and the tide had finally turned. The Union was winning, the Confederacy was rapidly collapsing, and after 4 unimaginable years of suffering, peace actually seemed imminent. And with that upcoming victory came the ultimate realization of Lincoln's hardest work, the passage of the 13th Amendment. This was the monumental piece of legislation that officially and permanently abolished slavery across the entire nation. His life's dream to preserve the United States and put an end to that brutal institution was finally becoming a reality. But then, right at the absolute peak of his greatest triumph, unimaginable tragedy struck. April 14, 1865, Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. While seeking just a brief moment of peace to watch a play, Lincoln was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer. The very next day, Abraham Lincoln died, and the devastation was just absolute. Millions and millions of Americans openly wept in the streets, totally shattered by the loss of the leader who had carried them on his shoulders through their darkest possible crisis. Today, more than 150 years later, Abraham Lincoln's spirit is still deeply, deeply ingrained in our history. He managed to achieve the impossible. He preserved the Union when it was literally tearing itself apart, and he helped end the horrific moral stain of slavery. But beyond all those massive political wins, his life is this incredible testament to the raw power of human character. He proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that true greatness doesn't come from having wealth or privilege or power handed to you. It depends entirely on your character, your perseverance, and your unflinching commitment to doing what's right, no matter how brutal the path gets. Which brings us to the final thought I really want to leave you with today. We've seen how a kid born in a tiny log cabin with less than a year of formal schooling used pure self-discipline and an insatiable hunger for learning to educate himself. We've seen how he was battered by failure after failure, yet consciously chose to stand back up every single time. So, looking at his journey, ask yourself, how will you handle your own failures? How are you going to persevere when massive, daunting challenges pop up in your own life? Lincoln's story is the ultimate reminder that even the humblest of beginnings can lead to the most extraordinary achievements. Keep learning, keep pushing forward, and let his incredible legacy inspire you to build your own unbreakable character. Thanks so much for exploring this amazing story with me today on The Explainer.